Oh, Monty. Please resist trolling us too hard. Or if you're Elle, hard.
Okay, come on. We haven't even started. We haven't even started.
Really just said
we haven't even started.
So, we are waiting on Matthew.
I saw him join the live.
Good. Awesome. Also, hi, Joseph. I will try to keep up with the chat. I am very ADD, so good luck to me.
Mare.
Okay, let's see. Just gonna pull this up here. Make sure. Hi, Basil.
It's Basil, I thought.
Ready. Basil? Did we agree on Basil? I thought it was Basil.
How was Basil? Oh gosh, we gotta do the debate again. Basil,
okay.
Tell us.
Is it Basil or is it Basil? Also, Matthew, just hit request. You know what? I could probably I'll send it to you. I'm a dumb.
Your name's being weird. I think it's Basil.
Hi. I'm gonna butcher your name. Is it Jennifer? I've never actually spoken in words with you. Hi.
Hello.
Hi,
Erwin. Hello there.
Right. I'm doing the introduction.
All here.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, you go. You.
My bad. Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to So You Wanna. Tonight, we are talking about fantasy. If you're just joining us, this is a show that Elle and I created to help encourage a community for writers. So it is a show by writers for writers. We're in no way experts, but we are really devoted, so that counts for something. And yeah, our goal is to have the community, but also add more books to the world. With that, I'm a troubled werewolf lover. My name is Meg. If you need proof of that, it's all in my urban fantasy, the Miranda Writes trilogy. And if you're just here for the hype train and maybe you like less fantastical work, you can check out my thriller romance, Birds and Bullets. The link's in my bio, along with all my work. As I said in the previous shows, I do have a number of broody poems. You know, if you want to go read those, the book is called Shallow. It's really sad.
If you're feeling sad and horny, right?
Yeah, sad and horny is the catch line from last week's show.
Well, on that note, hey, I'm Elle. I'm the author of 2 contemporary romances, Calorgland and For the Love of Art, both available for free on Wattpad. Just so that we're all clear here, I'm only on the show to talk about sexy knights slaying dragons.
Me too. Sorry.
All right, and we have a special guest here.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Sorry, I'm Matthew Romeo. I am the self-published author of the science fantasy trilogy, The Maven Knight. I am also working on another fantasy series known as the Seaworth Chronicles. Yeah, that's me.
Well, good. Where can we buy your work?
All 3 Maven Knight books are currently available for ebook and paperback on Amazon.
Awesome.
Links are in my bio on my link tree, which I just set up this week actually.
Wow!
It's
so handy.
Yeah, it is. I didn't realize how handy it was until I made one. I was like, wow, I really needed this.
Yeah. Hi, Joseph. So just a reminder that, every Wednesday we shoot out some questions, some polls. We do have those answers, those results, and all the questions that you guys sent us locked and loaded, ready for kind of the end of the show, where we always put them. But if you do think of anything along the way, feel free to drop it in the chat. We're going to address it as we go or write it down, however we can, but we will get to you. So, y'all want to get started?
Yeah. I will also say, anyone who wants to take screenshots, we're loving the screenshots that we're getting from people. They are hilarious.
How weird I look.
They're hilarious.
Oh my god.
They're good. And we just slide them into our DMs. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start us off today. I'm going to kick us off. I'm going to talk to you guys about how to entice those non-fantasy readers to maybe pick up your book. So since I'm the only non-fantasy writer of this group here, I figured this would be a great place to start, is how to get someone like me interested in your work.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to listen and take notes, you know, so that I can use that advice and eventually take over the world.
What?
Yeah, nothing. Okay.
Moving on from that, Pinky. Anyways, so to start with, I was actually really intimidated about this live. Like I said, not a fantasy writer. What?
I said it was
Am I
embarrassing.
being slow on anybody's screen?
Definitely, there is a circle of death.
Hear you.
Well, we can hear you.
My God.
Anyway, also, please don't at me, but I'm also not a fantasy reader. So this is a very weird live for me to be a part of, it feels like. So, I mean, that being said, I do read stories with fantastical elements to them. I'm beginning to worry that we've lost
Hi, little dreamer. We might have lost Matt.
Yeah.
I can boot him probably and then just re-invite him.
Yeah.
Let's
Might have
see.
to.
How do I do that?
I'm not sure.
I've never actually booted anyone. Matthew Lee,
Okay.
he's gone. Okay, I willed it into existence.
Okay, now you need to re-invite him, though.
I don't know.
Okay.
Go ahead, though.
Okay, I will
Put him
keep
back
going.
in here.
So I do read stories with fantastical elements in them, and every once in a while, I am known to pick something up from the fantasy section. Welcome back, buddy.
Thanks. That got scary because you both froze, and I was hearing like a word every like 2 seconds. I was like, uh-oh, I don't know.
Yeah, you were frozen.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. All right, anyway, so fantasy is not my overall go-to genre to write or to read. So, that being
As a
said,
person who loves Lord of the Rings.
you know, we'll get there, you guys. We're gonna get there. Let me say my piece, and we'll get to my love of Lord of the Rings later. So I will tell you guys, though, how to get a fantastical book to catch my eye. So I'm going to preface this by saying, like, this is my personal opinion. This is what draws me to a book. It's not going to necessarily be the way to get every single non-fantasy reader to grab your book. I am a firm believer that first and foremost, as a writer, you should be the most worried about like characterization, pacing, and your plot. Like, don't necessarily change your book just because you want to snatch a few other readers. Your book should make sense to what you want to create, and characterization, pacing, plotting are always like the most important part. So anything I'm saying, like, you can definitely take it as advice, but if anything I say sticks with you, let that be the thing that sticks with you. So the first two things that are always going to draw me into any book, it doesn't matter what genre it is, it's going to be your title and it's going to be the cover. And I know, you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but I absolutely do. If the cover looks interesting and the title sounds really cool, I'm definitely going to be flipping that book over or opening it up and checking out that synopsis and seeing what the book is about. The next thing is that catches me personally is that I'm mostly actually a period drama reader. And so if I open your synopsis and it's set in a different time in the past, I'm definitely going to be reading more to find out what your book is about. So I know I'm a romance author, and I think everyone thinks that I need romance in a book to read it, but that's not true. I will read any book as long as the relationships are well developed. So that can be romantic, familial, friendship. Doesn't really matter. I just like to see well-developed relationships that affect the character overall.
Enemies.
Enemies is fine, yeah.
Mortal frenemies.
The only thing I will say that I'm not...
Frenemies.
Why do I think I know what we're talking about? Anyway, the only thing that I'm probably not going to read is like a Lone Ranger style trope. I'm not super into those. But that's just me. And I will say, as a non-fantasy reader, I'm drawn to low fantasy, which is what I find of most people who don't read a lot of fantasy or aren't really interested in it. If you have a very like high fantasy book, it's going to be a little bit harder to pull us in, is what I've always kind of found.
Detail. And
there is a difference between low and high. Just I figure I should probably explain the difference really quickly here. So low fantasy is a subcategory of the fantasy genre, and it's like identified by supernatural occurrences encroaching on the real world. So an example would be Megan's book, Miranda Writes, set in it's Memphis, Tennessee, right? Anyway, but it's got the werewolf and vampires and all that kind of stuff, but it's in the real world. High fantasy is often set in an alternative fictional world rather than like the real world. So that would be Lord of the Rings, which, you know, I am a fan of. And speaking of high and low, we did a poll on Wednesday to see what everyone preferred. It seems like it's pretty close. I had 40% low, 60% high. Meg had 50-50, and Matthew had 44% low and 56% high. So pretty even actually across the board. It seems like yeah, it's pretty 50-50. So for all you fantasy writers, that means, you know, you have a 50-50 chance of getting readers. I found statistics. I'm not going to lie, you guys. In university, I didn't do that great at statistics. I kind of like flubbed my way through, but
yeah, got a C in statistics.
Don't worry, I got my degree. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to that low fantasy, because I did say that I do like low fantasy. So for me, like I said, low fantasy is where you're going to probably capture my attention, because I definitely don't want those fantastical elements to dominate the story too much. So for example, and Meg painfully knows my love of this book and series, Outlander. Anyone who is not living under a rock will know that the story contains time travel, which is not realistic, obviously, which is too bad, because what I would not give to go to Craignadoon, go through those stones, and meet Jamie Fraser.
I can agree with you on that.
Right? But however, like, to be honest, that's not actually what drew me to the story. I'm actually a really big fan and I have a huge interest. Like, if I did not do psychology in university, I probably would have gone into history. But, like, I love Scottish and Irish history. Pardon?
Definitely not statistics.
No,
Everyone
it's never going to be a
comments calling it out.
You
Gosh,
triggered some of our audience.
I'm feeling attacked. Anyway, I'm really into Scottish and Irish history. So, of course, what really drew me in was the time period, because the first two books were based kind of around Culloden and the lead up to Culloden, which I think is like one of the most interesting periods in Scottish history. So, you know, so that's what really drew me in. The time travel was kind of like just a fantastical piece that was part of the novel.
Yeah.
But the second thing that drew me in was the absolutely beautiful writing. I'm going to read a line from one of the books that I'm reading right now. So it says, all I want is for you to love me, not because of what I can do or what I look like or because I love you, just because I am. Like, it's just so lyrical and beautiful, and all of the language throughout the series is like that. You just, it's like what I aspire to be. And I just love that every time I open her book, I'm instantly transported. I feel like I know where I am. I feel like I know what I'm looking at world-wise, which is what sometimes I struggle with in high fantasy, is that I just can't picture the world. I can't put everything together. I watched Shadow and Bone. It took me 3 episodes to figure out what a Grisha was. Like, there's just, like, I'm just not good at, like, piecing things together that aren't real. But, like, that being said, I've also enjoyed fantasy novels that actually have way more fantasy. So, like, for example, I've read all of Harry Potter, read Lord of the Rings, and loved them both. I've also read, like, The Night Circus, Game of Thrones, just the first novel. I've read Aragon, just the first novel again. And there are varying reasons why I read these novels. So,
Cover art.
Yeah, like,
I mean, cover art.
Yeah, I'll cover art. But anyway, to wrap this up, because I feel like I've been talking for 10 years, if you are able, what I'm saying is, like, if you're able to support a subgenre, that's going to help draw in readers from that genre. Will want to come and check it out. But, you know, like I said, like, you know, keep everything. I can't even see the comments. That's sad.
Made is horrified. It took you 3 episodes to figure out what a Grisha was.
I'm sorry. I literally had to have someone sit down beside me, and I had to pause the show, and they had to explain the whole thing.
Context.
Anyway, that's what I was going to say. That's ultimately how I'm going to wrap it up, is saying if you can support a subgenre, throw that subgenre in there. Like I said, not the end of the world if you can't, or if your story isn't right for it, but it's just a way, if you are doing low fantasy, to help entice some other readers. Okay, Meg, I'm going to throw it to you because I feel like I've been talking forever.
I'm going to catch up on chat real fast. Basil or Basil? I think it's Basil. Whoever you are, thank you for doing the poll on your page too. It really helps us expand our reach. So if anybody wants to add our polls from it, I'm more than happy to send you, you know, the base picture that we make every week. It really helps us out. Send it our way. You know, this is a community. This is interactive. So yes, again, thank you. Glad to see that you were also deadlocked like me, because I felt like I wasn't contributing.
I feel like we were all pretty
deadlocked. A show called Mathematics with Elle. It would be very bad. As an authorpreneur, which is a cool word.
Wait, who said that about me? A math show would be bad?
No, I said that. Made brought up the show. I'm the bully here. Okay.
It's funny because I do finance for a living.
Oh, God. Sorry.
Irony.
From an authorpreneur perspective, I would put forward that attracting readers is about fulfilling a want and need and communicating that with a target audience. I agree with that. You definitely need to know who you're marketing to and kind of like keep your finger on the pulse of what they're wanting. Hello to the 3 people that have joined us. Okay. Now I think I'm caught up.
I can't even see the comments coming in. I don't know why.
I've got them up, so I'll try to keep up with them.
Okay.
I'm here for the people.
Apparently not. I'm here for the nights. I said it.
My topic ties into that. For me, I'm both a reader and a writer in the fantasy, and my favorite thing about it and my tips revolve around the people of stories. I want to say that I'm necessarily like a character-driven writer, but I do enjoy stories like that. My stories are probably a little too meticulously plotted to be reliant on the characters alone. But you know, I differ from Elle. So, you know, she's a romance writer, but I'm the romance reader. You're going to hook me if you have that relationship in your book. Yeah, I read books that don't have the romance in it, but my favorite books do. And I'm just a sap, guys, you know? I don't have a good excuse for it. There's just something special about being able to pull magic and fate and like this sort of like outside influence into why two people are being brought together. And that just like really resonates with me. And yes, I like the fated love. I like the true love, you know, against all odds. Like, I feel like there should be birds flying around me. But yeah.
I feel like it would die and just like fall.
Well, and the fact of the matter is I like that because honestly, you know, when you get down to it, I'm kind of a skeptic in the real world. So I like to read things that just really kind of bludgeon the, you know, this is fate, this is true love, this will conquer anything into you because, you know, I want to believe in it, but I want to have like that tangible, whatever. I don't have to explain myself to you guys. But yeah, so I like the books. I like to write the books. I like to read the books that bring like the love and the goodness and like the beauty of the world into the spotlight. And, you know, I like to see the two characters that are going to be in game, you know, even though you can write like, oh, will they, won't they? Oh, God, they're not. Oh, yes, they're back, you know. That's what I like. All the light in the universe and the stuff that's worth fighting to protect. Yeah. So, that being said,
I am like just trying not to vomit with all this like romance going on. Says the romance writer.
To be
So
honest,
sweet. Sometimes
I will send Elle work that I've written, and I'm like, could you read this and tell me if it's like what vibe you're getting? And she's like, wow, that is really beautiful. I'm gonna puke, and I'm like, you know, like.
If I tell you I'm gonna puke from your writing, it means that it's really good.
It's a compliment.
And it's romantic. Yeah.
But yeah, so if you guys watched our character building, which, you know, if you missed last week or the week before, that's fine. We have them posted on our pages and on our stories, so you can go back and watch them. But if you were here for character building, because I do see some familiar faces, then you're gonna, you know, recognize how fangirly I'm gonna get about character building and like dialogue. But that's where I hopefully thrive as a writer, is in the dialogue. That's my interest in fantasy and world building, is because I think that by using that stuff, you can really convey a lot of information about like your characters and their cultures, and like just by the words they use, and it just gives it that like extra element of diversity or whatever. So just self-plug here because I am knowledgeable in this, so that's, you know, what I'm going to talk about. In Birds and Bullets, which is contemporary, but there are certain, I call them bird words because birds and bullets, but they're like animalistic verbs used to kind of hint subtly to the reader that something more is going on with these characters. So I think, you know, that's a good way that you can implement that. And then, yeah, if you've read the Miranda Rights, which is my low fantasy novel, it's set in Memphis, and there's witches and vampires, but the main focus of the trilogy is really the Werewolfe. I'm going to butcher that. Don't at me.
Mari, make fun of her.
Don't at me.
Mari is my German tutor and translator, but I'm still learning. Be nice to me.
No.
So, yeah, like, the main focus of the novels are, like, their religion and their culture and, like, their purpose. And, of course, like, fate and good over evil and whatever. But, yeah, I based it in, like, Germanic lore, but that was already existing. And then, you know, so I have that, and they speak German to each other. So that tells readers who are familiar with that mechanic in the book, like, hey, if this guy's talking German, then he might be a werewolf, you know, like, depending on, like, the vocabulary he's using or whatever. And then, like, through that, you can convey kind of like a character's background based on if they speak more crassly or, you know, proper than other characters, I guess. But yeah, people, characters, culture. It's just a lot of tools that you can paint your universe with. And yeah, you see it in Firefly, and where the common tongue is a mix of English and Chinese, I think. And then and Lord of the Rings, where you can show that hobbits and the people of the Shire folk, they're so much more innocent than the rest of the world, and then they become something more. They become a symbol in the novel, So I think it's just like a deep artery for a story, the people, and that's what I'm here for. So, in conclusion, I like the hero come to save the day despite all odds. If they find love along the way, bonus. As long as that love is real and dark and multifaceted, necessary. Yep, I'm a goner. I'm gonna stop talking now because I talked a lot, and I know you guys definitely want to hear Matthew here. So, why don't you take it away?
All right.
Hi, everyone came, Matthew. No pressure.
Taking it away. All right.
Nice.
So the subtopic that I was going to cover was regards to world building. And I'm actually going to kind of jump off of your subject as well, Megan, because one of the big things that I do when I'm world building is I focus on character first. So I think it's easier because a lot of us writers, especially if fantasy is something we're not really comfortable with doing, the biggest question is, where do we start? Where do we, how do you create a world that's, just fantastical and doesn't obey the laws of our own universe? So for me, the best way to do that is to start with a character first, and you build the world around them. For me personally, just to give an example of my self-plug, in the Maven Knight trilogy, one of the biggest things for one of the primary characters was that he loved artifacts from the past world. So the way I built around that was to create a desert environment that was just littered with transports, technology, armor, all kinds of goodies for him to grow up, familiarizing himself with and, dissecting them almost as if he was like a salvager mixed with an archaeologist. And, that kind of
dream job.
Yeah, dream job.
He sounds really hot. Am I the only one feeling that? He sounds really... this is what I came to the show for.
I mean, to clear, there is romance in there too. It's all on romance. But yeah, that's what I built around him to give him, a stake in the world. It's, he wanted to learn more about the past, and it makes him, it drives his motivations going into the series, and it makes him, make some pretty bad mistakes when it comes to seeking that knowledge. So after doing that, I think it's easier for you to dive into the the nitty gritty of that kind of environment. There's villages. How many people are in that village? What is their culture like? Are they a close knit community that sticks together, or do they kind of want to branch out and stake their own claims on the salvage? There's two different ways you could do it. And then once more, you can expand from there. You expand into the different nations, the geography, how big is this desert going to be? Is the whole planet a desert? That's a Star Wars plug.
I wouldn't know. I've never seen Star Wars. Never seen it. Oh my gosh. It's so embarrassing.
Elle, you disgust me.
Do you want to dissolve this partnership?
No.
So for me, I think the easiest way to get into world building, if that's something that really intimidates you, is to start small. Start with a character, start with a town, just start with an idea. And something that I just saw earlier that I found was really profound was take inspiration. You don't have to worry about being, a copy paste or, doing the same thing over, because at the end of the day, It's your writing. It's your world that you're creating, and it's okay to have some homages or different kinds of takes on certain things. I certainly got inspired by Star Wars, but I was also inspired by books like the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, the Aragon books. I grew up reading those, and Lord of the Rings as well.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. This is my Gandalf hat.
I know. I really just want to say, like, you shall not pass, but
You shall not pass.
I was resisting.
So that's my big take on world building. But I also recommend for anybody who is trying to get into the fantasy genre for world building, it's to definitely read a lot of fantasy. Read or play games that involve fantasy.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of like keeping
any genre. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, keeping keeping your hand on the pulse. Wow, that was like incoherent babble. I'm sorry.
You know what I'm thinking, Meg, when you say stuff like that.
I know what you're thinking, but we can't say that because that would make us mean. It's terrible. For context,
better that our viewers know our true nature.
Very bad. We read it together in our, Mean Girl book club.
I think it's really heavy.
I'm going to catch up on chat real fast. One, Matthew, overall, your hat was very well received. So, just so you know, yes, I took notes. Okay. So, Basil said, I'm sorry. Why do we forget that? That's such a simple thing. Okay,
I'm 100% certain it's Basil.
There's a mental barrier when writing high fantasy. And I think, that's fair. I think it takes a lot of focus and kind of dedication to write it. Because, again, when you're writing fantasy, you want to set rules and then follow them. And when you dwell into, like, the high fantasy, I mean, you have a lot to remember because you have created an entire universe. I had difficulty doing low fantasy in that I had to write like a side book for myself so that I could like remember why my werewolves do certain things or why they don't, whatever.
I gotta appease the comments. Bring the hat back, though. Give the people what they want.
Yes.
Bring back the hat. Sade said she would read Miranda writes just for Sidrin. For anyone who doesn't know, that's a ship name for Sydney and Orin. They're pretty much they. So yeah, thanks for that. Ella, Earth sucks. Yay, high fantasy. Agree.
Earth sucks. That's a great comment.
John said relationship conflict is bae and very relatable. For the record, they didn't say is bae. I'm just basic, and that's what I'm saying.
Cool.
And then Basil is back. Your beta readers have a massive crush on your villain. They're willing to forgive him. I think that's a sign of a good villain because that means he's a really good villain. Well written,
Yeah.
Because I'll talk about it a little bit. We got some questions here coming up. And somebody asks about villains, but you want your villain to be likable because I think that gives your readers that much more angst. But yeah, and then again, in conclusion, yay, amazing hat. So I think I've caught up. I'm trying to stay active with you guys because again,
on the villain thing too. I just want to say, I think there's also like that humanity piece. Like people come for humanity, so no matter what you write, there should always be that humanity in there. Yeah. Otherwise, people aren't going to be interested. Like even if you're writing robots, they have to have some kind of human element to them, or else like people
robots.
don't.
I'm writing a cyborg romance.
Which is great. I'm just saying, like, there needs to be that human element. You can't forget the human element when you're writing.
Yeah.
Just saying.
This is the one thing that I might disagree on with regards to the villain, because I know that there is a
absolutely
a call for likable villains, but I also do think that there should serve some villains that are not redeemable. like that. It is their job to be the big dark overlord that aren't supposed to be likable, and you want the hero to triumph.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I never liked Voldemort, if that counts for anything.
Yeah.
Aw,
I was never...
Nobody
I'm
likes
Team
Voldemort.
Slytherin. Is something wrong with me?
Did you say that you're a Slytherin?
I'm a Slytherin, baby.
I'm
I'm
a
a Slytherin,
Ravenclaw.
but I don't like Voldemort.
Yeah. Well, I have a unicorn hair in my wand, so I'm like not evil.
Dragonheart.
I don't know.
It's not that I've written him well. It's because he's hyper masculine and alpha. They are basic, you see. You know what, though?
I do like a
hyper
hyper-masculine
alpha
man.
men. You know, like there's a reason that trope exists, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I was at the store the other day, and there was this cowboy romance, and it was like, I don't know. It essentially could have been called Bad Boy Cowboy Ranch. And listen, I almost bought it. Like, there's something special about a guy who just like chops wood or rides a horse. I'm sorry.
You always go back to the wood chopping every single
like
live. We have to talk about a man chopping wood at least once.
I can't help it. I know what I like. Okay. Let's talk about questions. If you guys have any more questions, drop them below.
I have a lot of questions about this wood chopping thing. It's never ending. Every live, I swear, every live we talk about wood chopping.
That's not my only type of guy. I just like that guy. You know,
Bad Boy Cowboy Ranch.
That's not what it was called. I just forgot the title.
That's the new name of this live is Bad Boy Cowboy.
Bad Boy Cowboy Ranch.
No more So You Wanna. We got a new name, everyone. New name.
Lumberjack erotica is a thing. I just found out in the chat. So please ignore me as I Google.
Well, I'm gonna write you a lumberjack erotica next.
Please do.
Would you like?
I'll include lumberjacks in my fantasy story if that gets you on board, Megan.
It will. Yeah.
Specifically for Megan, so that she buys your book. You're gonna include a lumberjack.
I can't. That's not my only type. I just like, I like men. You know what? I like women too, okay? If a woman wants to pick up an axe and chop some wood, I will watch her, okay? I have very simple needs.
I just need someone to chop some wood.
Okay. Jesus.
This got very off course.
A big thank you to everybody for your questions and for being so active in our chat. Again, we love it. So we went through the poll. I'm not going to talk about that, but let's go straight to the questions. So the first question we got was, how long do you think should be spent on world building? I'm going to answer this super quickly, and then I'm going to pawn it off on Matthew because he is the high fantasy guru,
I have the hat.
Yeah, you have
The hat of knowledge.
Hat. So for me, world building takes as long as it takes. I wrote a whole mini book, I said, where I wrote down the rules of my world so that I could follow it and reference it as I wrote. I know it sounds silly, but, when you're knee deep in a book, you want to explore different paths of how to get to A to B to C. And, you might have an end game in mind, but it's easy to kind of veer off course and you'll run into like a continuity issue for that reason. And so, I think it's just helpful to stay on track like that. So as long as it takes. Matthew.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. As long as it takes, however long it takes to develop your world. I will say, though, you can get trapped in world building. And especially if you're a high fantasy writer or a science fiction writer, you can create the world and never write the story.
Yeah.
I've done that many times where I've just spent too much time world building and never actually written the story.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is to, I guess, spend, I'm just going to generalize and say a couple of days doing some world building. Make sure you start writing your story after that. And you will be surprised how retroactively you world build when you're in your story. Because as of now, my Maven Knight books or my Maven Knight trilogy is out, but I'm still world building in it.
That can be a dangerous slippery slope.
It is. I'm coming up with all these new goodies and trinkets for like the behind the scenes stuff, and I'm like, I should be writing a new story, not doing this.
I don't know anyone who's doing that and not, releasing the second installment of their trilogy. It's definitely not me.
Yeah, who's that? Who's that?
Who's that?
We did get a question just now. It was, can we rename low fantasy? It doesn't sound as cool as high fantasy. I'm not really offended by it.
No, I'm kidding.
I feel a little offended because I love low fantasy.
Yeah,
It's very cool.
We could call it like potato fantasy. I don't know off the top of my head. It just sounds
Maybe
cool.
would you consider contemporary fantasy?
See?
Temporary fantasy?
Or contemporary fantasy.
Contemporary fantasy, yeah. I've heard it called magic realism. Yeah,
That's a good one.
Okay. Anyway, let's see what else. Somebody says you can create the world, but never write the story. I feel this. I do low fantasy. Rely on the book and Bible. World we want to buy. Okay, I'm just making sure we're up to date. I don't want to miss anybody. Okay. Question number 3: is it possible to write a fantasy romance? I fucking hope so, because I did.
Whoa, okay, so I know that this isn't an After Dark episode, but still, you guys don't have the kids around.
I forgot to put my earbuds in.
I know. Poor Matthew.
Not hers. I'm trying. I'm a work in progress.
She really
She's
is.
passionate
I'm
about
working
I
on
am
it.
a gun mug, and you guys expect me not to drop the F-bomb?
No. Okay, so moving on from that, as the romance writer of the group, which I don't know how to come back from what Megan said. I don't think anything I'm going to say is as profound as that, but you can definitely do a fantasy romance. It's actually, I feel like, very common.
Yeah.
I've read a lot. Well, I should say I've read a lot. I've heard of a lot of them. Sorry, what?
Yeah. I said the Sookie Stackhouse series off the top of my
Yeah.
head.
Oh, yeah, I've read those too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely doable. The only thing I will say is that if you are trying to entice the romance reader, make sure that you're following the actual, like, romance kind of arc, the way to do a romance arc.
Happily ever after, yeah.
Yeah, which you can find that I have a post for it on my page. Also in our highlights, you can find if you want to write a romance, and if you just incorporate that into your fantasy, it'll help draw in those romance readers, because they're all there for the happily ever after. So have magic, no magic, they're there for,
Yeah.
I was gonna say something not appropriate. Can we move on to the next question, please?
Next question is going to be for the hat. How can I world build without writing too much exposition?
So I don't have a good answer for that, because I am a victim of that. I think one of the first criticisms I got on my first Maven Knight book was that there was too much exposition early on in it. So I'm going to give my best answer for this. So the way that I would recommend avoiding exposition in the world building is to show rather than tell. And I know that's really hard for us as writers because we're telling a story. So I think it comes down to the little things to show your world building without exposition. Like if you want to have like magic be integrated into a society, you could have it be like, okay, there's, walkways that just hover, or, they have elevators that aren't really elevators. And that way you could kind of just show that there is a magic integration into that society.
Okay. Yeah.
The other thing I would say that
was the best thing I could come up with.
the other thing I was going to say that I've read any time where there's a lot of explanation needed for something is people use dialogue to explain things, you know, like saying like, oh, look at that pink tree over there kind of thing to give you an idea of like what, you know, the trees look like in this world. So yeah, that's another thing that I would say you can do.
We got another question. What is the best fantasy romance? What and why? I'll answer for Elle. It's Outlander because it's beautiful, miracle. Time
okay,
travel.
but like, can we just say something here? Outlander is not a true romance. It's actually a drama. So
I feel like a marionette. Your words are coming out of my mouth. Yes, I know.
So I can't say that it's the best fantasy romance. To be honest, I have not read a lot of fantasy romance. I've read Megan's fantasy romance, which is a true to form romance.
Right. What kind of friend are you?
I'm the worst friend.
Yeah. Go on.
So, you know, I don't know. I'm not big, like I said, I'm just not big on fantasy. I just have a hard time with it. So I'm going to buy the Maven Knight series though.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I feel like I'm being a bad friend for not reading Megan's fantasy romance. So I got to get on that.
We're all the worst.
It's free on Wattpad.
Yeah. I mean, I don't write fantasy, but I mean, my stuff's free too, in case anyone cares.
So we got a question. With each of your series, what need do they fulfill? Silence.
Is this for me?
I know. I was like, what series have I written?
What series have I written? I'm trying to dissect the question of like what need does it fulfill just on a personal level. For me, the Maven Knight trilogy was my love letter to Star Wars, but it was also my fan pseudo rewrite of the abomination that was the Star Wars sequel trilogy. So that was the need
about that.
That was the need that fulfilled. For the Seaworth Chronicles, my fantasy series, it's scratching the itch of wanting to pay homage to Brandon Sanderson, Christopher Paolini, George R. R. Martin, a host of other fantasy writers that have inspired me in my reading world.
So he clarified, he says needs and readers. So you
needs and readers. Okay. Well, for Maven Knight, I'm going to say the same thing. At least the people that have read it have said that this is, you know, we like Star Wars, so this is on par with that.
Yeah.
Their words, not mine. And then for the Seaworth Chronicles, we're hoping that it's just a fun fantasy adventure, like almost a romantic comedy adventure, because the style we're going for is
I'm listening.
Like the Princess Bride.
Oh, the Princess Bride.
I love that movie so much, and I want to have a kind of a general theme and a tone like that movie did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I love it. I'm here for it.
I'm definitely going to be checking that out.
You should. We can't be friends until you do.
No, I've seen The Princess Bride.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm talking about the book.
Good. Even better.
Is our friendship back on?
Yes, back on.
Well, that was scary, you guys. You just don't watch us break up.
Next question. Oh my goodness. How do you keep your work original and unique, including setting, characters, species, etc.? What's been done before in fantasy?
So this one's a little tough. Oh, sorry. Were you speaking? You were going back?
No, go ahead. You can. Oh, I just had like a one-sentence thing before I pondered off on you. I was going to say, focus, take notes, set rules, follow them, explore the whys and hows and the why nots of everything. And yeah, that's it. Take it away.
So for me, I think it's important. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Is to do your research with reading fantasy so that you know what not to cut and paste, because it's hard to to do this in fantasy because there's hundreds, if not thousands, of fantasy novels out there. So no one is going to be fully original. But I guess what the best thing you can do is to look at what's been done before and see what could be done differently. Like for our fantasy world, we decided to have, there's the high elves and then the low elves. The low elves are basically like cowboys. We thought that would be fun to have.
Yeah, I'm feeling
We know I like cowboys.
Maybe some lumberjacks among them.
Yeah, make sure that they're cutting wood at some point, okay? Just add that in there.
Yeah, tell them that down.
I'll add
You say it every line. Like every line we're talking about it.
Why?
How do you let something down that you talk about?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I offended you with my friendship.
Every day.
Okay, next question. Do you think fantasy world building is more about places, small details, food and clothes, accents, or both? For me, it really depends on the story that you're telling or the message you're trying to send. I have a work in progress called The Author's Boy, and the main focus on that is class disparity and like a clash of culture. So, love against all odds. And for me, because of that, the people and how they talk in general, but also how they talk to each other, it takes precedence there. So yeah, and that's my answer.
I'm just gonna stop you guys really quickly. We're at like the 5-minute mark, so before we have to end. So just gonna throw that out there. Okay, keep going.
All right. I'll do this fast. So for me, with regards to fantasy world building, I do think it does encompass places because, these are the places you hopefully want to explore, you want your character to go to. But it's also dealing with the lore and the mystery of the world that you also take into consideration.
I'm sorry. I got an ice cube in my mouth.
I can keep talking. It's also, you could also elaborate that to the foods. Like what we have done for our fantasy series is the elves are strictly vegetarian. I know that's not inherently new to fantasy, but we wanted to have something of like, fruit paste that they put on breads and, wines that come from all kinds of fruit instead of just grapes.
Yeah. Okay. A very specific question. How would you write a tyrannical sadist in a fictional world accustomed to violence? This is definitely a question for the hat, but all I would say is that, I would go incredibly dark. So when you write a villain, commit. Have a reason why they are the way they are, and then follow through. Don't pull punches because you think your readers are going to cringe. You want them to cringe. You want them to fear your bad guy because if they don't, why should your hero? What's really at stake? If he's smart, if he's hiding in plain sight, if he's ultimately really good at being bad, he's going to be far more dangerous than the guy who's just a dick. So, bonus points if he truly believes in what he's doing is righteous. That's how I would write it.
I guess I just have a simple response to this one. It's they shouldn't be surprised by any extreme act of violence. If they're a tyrannical sadist, nothing should surprise them apart from maybe someone being kind to them. And that would really throw them for a loop.
Yeah.
I think that throws anyone for a loop.
We are short on time. The last two questions here are how to write a large-scale fight scene and then over and underused tropes. So large-scale fight scene for me, just do your research. Talk to people who actually know how to fight, instructors, people who do it as a hobby, freaking Reddit, just do your research. Use actual terms, try to act it out maybe, because I can't tell you how many times I've read something and I'm like, that is physically not possible. you know, so just be conscious of that. And then I don't really have anything for over or underused tropes. I know that the chosen one is used, but I'm kind of a fan of tropes, and I feel like if you write it well, it doesn't really matter what label you throw on it. I don't know if you had anything else to add to those.
I feel like that Matthew's good with the sword fight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
I mean,
that's why I kept on being like, Matthew, ask him.
Yeah.
Thank you. With regards to large scale fighting, it's also good to map it out. You know, especially if you have thousands upon thousands of people in these armies, you need to, you know, have that tangibly written down so that you know who's taking what hits, where they're going. Because if you're writing it down, it gets really jumbled. And I've written a large scale battle, and it went through a lot of revisions.
Yeah.
And then over and underused tropes, I think an overused trope is the MacGuffin, which is the mystical artifact that everybody has to find to save the world. I'm guilty of that. Yeah. I've done that. But then an underused trope, I think, is the enemies to lovers trope. I don't actually see that in a lot of fantasy.
I love that.
Oh my gosh, did you see her face? How it like reacted to that?
Listen, the Osler's boy is enemies to lover. I'm in a dark place right now.
But yeah, that's what I got for those.
Cool. All right. Well, we're pretty much at the hour mark here. So I'm gonna have to be the bad one today and shut this down. But I hope everyone had a lot of fun. I know I did.
So much fun.
Meg was busily taking notes as usual, so I hope everyone was as well. But of course, like, if you guys have questions, slide into our DMs. Any one of the three of us, you can ask us anything, and we're happy to answer.
And I just want to say one more thank you to Matthew. Thank you so much for coming on here. It's been so much fun. I love hearing about your work, and I can't wait to buy it and post on my story all about it. So,
thank you both for having me on here. This has been a true pleasure. Can't wait to support and promote y'all's work. Just send me whatever pics y'all need, and I'll put it out there.
Perfect. Can you plug yourself once again? Just let our viewers know where to find you.
I'm primarily active on Instagram at matthew.s.romeo. You can find links to my website, Facebook, Goodreads, and all my books in the bio. And yeah, all three of my Maven Knight books are on Amazon.
Yay!
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Next week, we're actually taking a deeper look at world building. And so we're super grateful to Matthew for actually kicking us off in the right direction with that. Just want to make sure everyone's hitting that like button. Tell a friend about the show, about our community that we're trying to build, so that people can tune in. Every Wednesday, like I said, we have our sneak peek of the upcoming show for you guys. And as always, just remember that we want to see you every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Also, if you have a lumberjack mug, please send it to my DMs.
I'm glad that made it back.
I see you. I want it.
Oh, Lordy. Well,
excellent.
On that note,
thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.